Hi folks, good evening. Sorry that I am a little bit late, but for some odd reason I was logged out of my Facebook account. So I there busy trying to go live and end up having to reset the entire system and log back into Facebook, etc., etc. So hi Sharon, hi Daryl, hi Christopher. Yes, I'm aware that I'm late and I'm apologizing. Hi Helen, hi Mary, hi Anne, hi Fabian. Nice to see all of you. Nice to have everybody here on the Sunday evening before a holiday. So thank you so much for joining me, because I know you'd have a million and one other things all you could be doing. I passed through town today, or rather I should say I passed by the outskirts of Port of Spain, and I know the minute I say I passed through town, plenty early done trying to map, well, where she was doing, where she was going, because all in all you're curious like that. So I was passing on the outskirts of Port of Spain, drove past Queen's Hall, and saw there was a party, some sort of event, some sort of fete. Now, I am happy to see that promoters are throwing events, and that promoters are having events, and that people are going out, and that people are once again beginning to do things to enjoy themselves. Well, wear all your masks now. Please. Wear the masks on them now. Because I was seeing loads of people walking around or milling around outside of the event and inside the event. No masks on at all. Like I even said, I was wearing the mask under the chin. There was no masks at all. So please, when you look at the numbers, we're still getting several hundred persons, 400 persons, 800 persons, 900 persons sometimes still becoming positive. So it's not because the numbers are down to 2 deaths a day. That's still too many if you ask me. But wear the masks and thing now. Yes, I am aware that the PDP launched this afternoon at Hyatt, and that it was live on CNC3. Thank you very much, David PNM Tate. But my page is not about necessarily promoting the PDP, right? At some point in time, I will talk about all of these parties that are popping up, but I really want to talk about the PDP. There are a number of things that I am going to talk about this evening, though, and we will be talking about at least one political party. Actually, we're going to talk about multiple political parties, because today is the United National Congress's 30th anniversary. I didn't organize a graphic for that. I should have organized a graphic for that. So I go talk to Tech Guy and see if he could organize me with a graphic to congratulate the United National Congress. But 30 years of the United National Congress, because they would have started first as Club 88 in 1988, when a faction broke away from the National Alliance for Reconstruction. And then later on, they would have, let me see if that happened in 1988. Then by about 1990, 1991, somewhere thereabouts, or maybe a little bit later down, there was the actual launch of the United National Congress. Hi Melina, you may want to leave the live and then re-enter the live, because I am at maximum volume here. So I know that it's not a situation where my volume is a little low. So perhaps check the volume on your device or exit and re-enter. So 30 years of the United National Congress. And I was chatting with Tech Guy today, telling him about, what is I planning to do this evening on the live. And I pointed out to him, Friday evening, I went into Port of Spain. Me know who tell me to go out my thoughts and go into Port of Spain. But I wanted to lime with two dear friends of mine. So I pick up myself and I left home with the intent of going to have lunch with two friends of mine. And to be able to do that, I had to drive through a hell of a lot of traffic. For the life of me, I really not understanding why everybody wants to be back out on the road in the way in which everybody's back out on the road. But if all you think, that's how all you want to live, that's the life all you want to live, I'm not going to, me ain't gonna beat up with all you. So where I had to go was close to Stanmore Avenue, thereabouts in Newtown, Port of Spain. And as you know, Balize House is on the corner of on the corner of Victoria Avenue, and I forget the name of that other street. And I looked at the building that was being put up. Now, mind you, the People's National Movement is, more than 30 years old. I'm thinking now if we are going into 60 years of independence, the People's National Movement, more than 60 years of age, right? Maybe, I can't remember the actual figures. But I was saying to Tech Guy, 30 years old, and what does the United National Congress as an entity have to show for reaching 30 years of age? It is currently not even, it doesn't even have its own building, right? Its headquarters, to the best of my knowledge, is them renting office space on top of a bar somewhere down in Kamloops constituency. And I thought, if you have to think about it, in terms of development, the UNC needs to take stock of itself, because I wouldn't want to get to 30 years of age and all I had to show for myself is renting a little space on top of a bar, especially when I want to be positioning myself to the population as the government in waiting. So I thought about that today. I thought this is what one particular political party is doing by way of cementing itself as an entity in a country, and that is what another political entity has done or is doing by way of cementing itself within a country. And so, of course, you're there and you're thinking to yourself, legacy, approach to running a party, approach to, especially when you think about the things that are said all the time about who does save, who does use their money wisely, those kinds of things. So all of that came up in my conversation today when I was remarking on the fact that it was the UNC's 30th anniversary. And I felt like they didn't really have that much to show for their 30 years of existence. So that's that. Thank you to the person who reminded me that it's Tranquility Street. You are absolutely right. It is Tranquility and Victoria. I believe so. Tranquility and Victoria. So good evening, folks. Thanks for linking up with me, and let us get into things. Now, I start off the week wanting to talk about Kumar Sahu. Sorry, Arun Sahu, not Kumar Sahu. Arun Sahu, the Indian High Commissioner. And ideally, Friday evening, that is what I was going to talk to you all about. But Friday evening didn't happen. So this evening, we might go past the 8 o'clock time. So I hope all you're okay with going past the 8 o'clock time. Starboy, I don't know how many of you all remember that I have a dog now. Starboy is sleeping under my chair at this point in time. So if you hear any barks, or if you hear me say stop biting my foot, it is because Starboy is like right under my chair. So tomorrow's a holiday, and of course, yes, Ali, like you, I'm thinking about Samhain, but it's also, I mean, it's a religious holiday. It's been a period of fasting for Muslims, so it's a very holy period for them. So we ain't just talking about Sahu alone. As a matter of fact, Sahu will be probably the last thing we're going to talk about this evening. But we are going to be talking about all of the things that have happened in news for the week, and of course, EMBD, etc., etc., etc. So let me jump into it. Right. So UE put out its exam schedule. Now, let me tell you something. The University of the West Indies is a regional university, and the name of the university alone should tell you it's a regional university. So this story would have cropped up, yesterday? UE students not happy with Eid exams. And I feel they needed to make it more specific to some students of Muslim leanings have a problem with the exam. Let me tell you why, for me, this is a non-story and it should not have been made into a headline. But because media here wants to push a particular head of discontent and dissonance, and people from various groups feeling as if, oh, we're so oppressed, they run with that particular headline. Let me explain why it shouldn't be an issue. One, the University of the West Indies is a university set up within the region of the West Indies. Eid is not a holiday that is celebrated throughout the entire region. As one, it's a regional university. Another thing you need to take into consideration is that this regional university has international students, especially its medical sciences program. There are lots of students from all over the world that sign up for and do our medical program. There was I'm sure part of the program is still face to face because there's a whole practical aspect to medicine. But we have regularly, the University of the West Indies, whether it is Mona, Cave Hill, or St. Augustine, we have medical students from all over the world. So it's an international medical program at that. That's the first part of the thing. The second part of the issue is this. The exam schedule, the examination dates, the university's calendar of events is put out an entire academic year in advance. So you see, those dates that the student complaining about, we would have known, staff and students would have known since last year, August, because that's when the academic calendar is released. The academic calendar is released August of the August prior to the calendar year. So you see 2022-2023, I will have the calendar of events for 2022-2023's academic year at the end of August 2022. Exams run on a strict schedule, a strict period, right? So there are specific weeks in each semester for things like credit assignments, coursework assignments, and that's for some programs. And there are strict weeks for medical exams. Now, things like Eid and Diwali, and there may be other holidays that are not coming to mind, are lunar holidays. In that, the sighting of the moon is what does determine what day those holidays fall. The University of the West Indies, the regional university that does its academic calendar a whole year in advance of when things happen, does not sit down and factor in the lunar calendar, religious holidays, any of those things when it is building a calendar. Which is not to say that there are certain holidays that never really are impacted on, because the way in which it will do its exams for the first semester, the exams normally end by the 24th of December. So I've had regular semesters where up until Christmas Eve, students have exams, and then that's the cutoff, and it's the cutoff for the Christmas break. And that Christmas break is for both students and staff because it runs into the new year, and it is during that time staff's supposed to be doing their grading and assessments and stuff, and then they upload marks. The next semester runs for 13 weeks, and at the end of that 13 weeks is the exam period. It's been the exact same thing for however many umpteenth years of the semester system, because the semester system at the university started sometime in the 90s. So when I saw this story, I said to myself, I don't even know who it is write this story for TV6 and them. They are nothing but bare mischief. Because how the story positions itself, how the headline positions itself, it is as if the University of the West Indies trying to spite or trying to marginalize a particular religious community in Trinidad and Tobago. Again, it is a regional university, and things like the examination calendar, that gets set a long time in advance. So I was disappointed that TV6 and them reached to the point where they're looking to drag a regional university into the slackness that is be carrying on with here in Trinidad and Tobago. Because the same exam dates, the same exam period that you have for St. Augustine is the same exam period that you have for students who are at the Cave Hill campus, students who are at the Mona campus, students who are at the Open campus. It is the same examination period. And if I remember correctly, because of course the last time I did an exam would have been in the last century, me ashamed to say it, I born in the 70s and I went to school in the 80s and 90s. When I did CXC, and when I did, well, it was A-levels then, not CAPE, I often had to do exams on public holidays. I remember doing exams on Labor Day. I remember doing exams on Corpus Christi. I remember doing exams on a Whit Monday. So when I saw this, I thought to myself, why has this now suddenly become a thing? I also wondered, how is it that the students would wait until this weekend, right? The weekend when Ramadan comes to an end and we break fast and people celebrate Eid. How is it that you decided to wait now to talk about concerns where the exam, with respect to the exam, when you would have known a whole month, because Ramadan being declared as a holiday is something that would have happened in this year. So you would have known since August last year what the exam periods were. And you would have been aware, as soon as you found out when Eid was falling, you would have been aware that Eid would be falling in the midst of the exam season, because everybody knew when the exam season was. There is a third semester coming up. That third semester starts at the end of May, and I could tell you when are the exam dates for that third semester, and I could tell you the dates for that. I could tell you them exam dates since last year. So when I saw this story, I thought to myself, nothing more than mischief, and I'm there thinking, TV6, OCM, better than that. Pull up all your socks now. Because all I know, I hear set like Mapapi to point out at every single turn that all you're not doing all your job as media. Right, so that's that. That's one of the news stories. So then there's this other news story. Shan apparently lost his defamation lawsuit against Renuka Singh. So it turns out that the comments, the things that were said in the story by Renuka that pointed out why Shan had bank transactions that were flagged, that she wasn't necessarily defaming the gentleman at all. So he lost the case, and so now questions had to be asked about FIB investigating Shan, and why FIB investigating Shan? And now, of course, I'm wondering to myself, might this be the reason Shan has been having problems getting Forex from the banks? Because I don't know how many of you follow Shan's pages and Shan's and the lives that he does breaking barriers and stuff. But every so often, he's complaining about his ability to access Forex. Every so often, he's complaining about FCB. Every so often, he's talked about how he is being denied access to Forex. And now, given the nature of the story that Renuka Singh would have done, and the outcome of the defamation case, I am now wondering if, because according to the story, he was being investigated by the Financial Investigations Bureau, if that might be impacting on his ability to access foreign exchange. Because based on the story, there seems to be concerns about terrorist financing, right? Based on the article, there seems to be concerns. There seems to that is throwing itself up as a possibility. So now after having read that, now I start thinking to myself, well, this complaint about foreign exchange and access to foreign exchange, and him regularly complaining about not being able to get foreign exchange, now I'm starting to think, oh, there might be more in the mortar than the pestle. I don't know. I mean, hopefully, something will happen with that financial investigations branch, the FIB investigation, and we'll hear things about it. But I'm just saying, based on that story, it started to make sense. Jack Warner gone to the Privy Council with the whole extradition case. So he is now before the Privy Council. And once the Privy Council rule, that will be the final thing. So Warner, as you know, is challenging being extradited to the United States to answer questions about monies, right? White collar crime and thing again. So that's something to look forward to. I mean, have plenty interesting things that happened this week. Then you have the Blackout Report. Now, well, it have plenty thing that I might be, right? But an ass is not one of them. And you see this Blackout Report? This Blackout Report, this whole business about a tree fall down and the tree is what led to the blackout, I ain't sure I buy in it. I feel as if that explanation is too pat. But I've not read the entire report. I still have to read the entire report. So I will make an effort to go through the report and eventually come and tell you what is I find in the report and whether it making sense or not making sense. But there was one particular thing that I wanted to take a look at from this report. And so let me switch here. Bring myself up, small up myself. I'm so impressed with Starboy. He just lied on quiet. Before I started doing the live, I put him outside the studio and he was kicking the door. So I was like, okay, fine, come into the studio, right? Come into the studio. And he has been quiet for the most part, fingers and toes crossed. So there is this bit here in the report that says, the committee noted that this particular incident presented an ideal opportunity for the various security agencies to take the mantle of leadership during a critical incident, but instead were ball watching to see if anyone else would take the catch. Now you see that? For me, that right there hit plenty nails on the head. When that blackout occurred, there were a number of things that ought to have happened that didn't happen. And the major issue was communication. The only person or the only entity that we were getting information from at the start would have been from the Ministry of Communications via, which is housed within the office of the Prime Minister. But I want to tell all of this. That's not a work. I know you hear the title Ministry of Communications and you're thinking, well, they're supposed to communicate. The point of the Ministry of Communications is to make sure that it communicates government issues and government information on government projects. But we have an entire entity here called the Office of Disaster Preparedness Management, ODPM. And when that disaster took place, because make no mistake, it was a disaster, current going in an entire island. Nobody has information about why what has happened. And one of the critical things during a crisis is communications. And ODPM sit down on its ass the entire time and did nothing. And I want all you to remember something. ODPM have everybody phone number, right? Because when the hurricane season is about to kick into gear, ODPM is going to start sending you text messages. You will get a text message from ODPM indicating that this is a test that they're sending out to ensure that the various phone numbers that they have stored in their repository are getting messages, and they will ask you to respond to the text message so that they know whether or not their text messages are going through and how wide a base, right, the text messages are reaching. SMS text messages are still the most reliable way to pass around information once people have cell phones. And so we ought to have been in a position where we were using radio, whether it's FM or AM radio, right? So 610 and things. So put information out on radios. We ought to have been in a situation where ODPM was sending updates to people's phones left, right, and center so that you know what was taking place. And it ought to have been a situation where The TTPS was sending information to ODPM, and so ODPM was disseminating whatever information from TTPS, and also disseminating whatever information they needed to disseminate from TNTech and any of the other entities in the country, whether they needed to give you information from Flow, Digicel, B Mobile, whoever, whatever, they needed to be doing that. That did not happen. There was no communication taking place. There was no coordination of communication taking place. So when you want to come and tell me a rotten tree fall down and lead to blackout in the entire island, I taken that with a pot spoon of salt. What I am not taking with a pot spoon of salt is the total breakdown in communications, with ODPM not having done its job and coordinating crisis communications for the island. Because you know what? That is ODPM work. That is the whole work. And when we eventually had a press conference with information coming to people, ODPM was nowhere there explaining why they had dropped the ball. So everybody wanted to hear from TNTech, and I didn't give all you wrong for wanting to hear from TNTech and wanting to hear why exactly what happened. Me didn't give all you wrong for that. But you know what I was upset about? That we didn't at any point in time see whoever is the director, the head, the CEO, the whatever it is of ODPM coming to explain why there was such a massive breakdown in information sharing from the necessary entities and the wider population. So, as far as I'm concerned, a major ball drop and ODPM dropped that ball. So, ODPM, the ball is now in your court. And I say that because there will be further crises in this country. The traffic jam that took place the other day by Peaks, when they was fixing and replacing the pipe and thing, and it led to a massive set of traffic back up into Port of Spain and other parts of the country. Again, ODPM could have been sending text messages to people. Ministry of Works and Transportation had another critical role to play where that was concerned as well, in terms of setting up a reroute of traffic to other parts of other roadways and other arteries to be able to get people to be able to get people in and out of the peninsula. So there's a part of me wondering, how is it that these major institutions that set up, where there's a ministry, where there's Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management, where people getting their whole salary when the month come, all again all the salary normal, you know, how it is all in doing all the work? Why are they not doing all the work? And what does it take to get you all to get off your asses and do your work? Right? That's just me. That's just me. Yeah, maybe there is a disaster going on at ODPM that needs addressing. Right? Maybe. But ODPM, I don't know where you all been for a minute. I really don't know where you all been. So that's that. No, not that. I showed it that already. And then there was this story. Oh my word. Have you all been following this story? Because this story real juicy, you know. I get the legal documents. It's about 19 pages, and I feel I have to take some time and read them 19 pages and come back a day, because I want to talk about it, but I just want to talk about I don't want to just talk about the drug bust. I want to talk about the ways in which islands or island nations like the British Virgin Islands that have softer policies when it comes to drugs and drug trafficking and money laundering, how that impacts the rest of the region. Banking as well as trafficking and trading, how those things affect the rest of the region. But for anybody who new to the story, the Premier of the British Virgin Islands, which is the equivalent of a Prime Minister, if you're a country like Trinidad and Tobago, or a president if you're a country like Guyana or the United States. The premier of the British Virgin Islands was caught in a sting operation, conspiring to sell drugs and launder money. And there was a whole operation set up to catch him and the port operator, the person responsible for the port, a whole thing set up. So I put the 19 pages on Newsauce. So those of you who want to go and take a read of the actual testimony from the person who was part of this sting operation, you will get that, because that's one of the court documents. But this is going to be a nice juicy story. So those are some of the things that was going on this week. Those are some of the major stories that was taking place this week. Another major story, or a combination of major stories that was taking place, is Munilal and Embd. So Munilal set up a series of distractions this week. Me see a page, a front page, a back page, a middle page from the Sunshine newspaper in a long while. But when I could sit down on social media and I could pick up my phone and I see in a set of WhatsApp groups that I know aligned in a particular way, starting to share thing around, and there's no Bacchanal brewing. So I see this story, and the story just was not making sense, because it's 28 warrants to be issued to contractors and an opposition MP. And they make sure they put a picture of Gary, they put a picture of a truck, they put a picture of the lady from the British company that leading the investigation, the forensic investigation into Embd, and they put a picture of Munilal. And of course, because we know that the Sunshine is linked to Jack Warner, and we also know that, we know the leanings, the political leanings. I looked at it and I thought, is this a distraction? Did they throw this story out there because, of course, at the Monday night forum, the United National Congress has been kicking up a lot of dust around this, around the firm, right? And talking about SRP Kate and SRP Kate and SRP Kate. And I'm like, this poor lady, paid to do a job, doing her job, and she name jumping up in people's mouth in a particular way that of course maligns her name without her ever really having done anything wrong, negative, illegal, whatever it is. So I saw this story, I saw this being circulated, I shared it to my wall as well, and I wondered what was really going on behind it. And I wondered what was really going on behind it because there was nothing to suggest at all that there were warrants being issued, that there were contractors having to deal up with anything, and that an opposition MP was about to be charged. The thing is, there have been other stories over the years about Munilal being a person of interest in investigations. So I'm wondering, why is Munilal so worried? Why does he seem so concerned? I will say though, I was happy to hear that a foreign firm was here assisting the police and guiding our police officers in how to do this kind of white-collar criminal investigation. Oops, just now. Right, that. So, of course, Rudal Munilal mouth start a run this week, right? So 2 days ago, he have all kind of thing to say about Embd because the Embd ruling came in. So, just to refresh all your mind, the estate management, am I remembering what Embd means properly? Hold on, let me pull up a document so that I have it clear. Oh my goodness, this thing doesn't even actually say what it means, but I'm thinking it's estate management and something development. In any case, the Embd ruling came in this week, and let me go to the press release. Let me go to the press release on this. So let me take 2 seconds and catch my breath and say this thing properly. 2016 into 2017, a civil matter was taken to the courts. Clarence Rambarat, as then Minister of Agriculture, and then eventually Stuart Young as Minister of Legal Affairs, would have come to the population and talked to them about a series of contractors who benefited under the People's Partnership with contracts. These contractors would have been paid to do works, a range of works, different types of works, Some of it had to do with improving agricultural roads and doing a lot of work to improve agricultural roads, right? And what they would have done was tendered, and thank you very much, Kadeem, so Estate Management and Business Development Company. They would have tendered for contracts to do road improvement and road development and stuff in agriculture, on agricultural lands. And their bids were highly inflated, and they received payment up front for the work without having actually done the work. And so because they did that, and there was a whole paper trail showing that there was all of this work tendered for and all of this work paid for, but there was very little sign that the work had been done. It became a civil matter, right? And we would have had Senator Rambarat talk about it in the Parliament, and then Minister Young. Thank you, folks. Estate Management Building Development Company Limited. Now, EMBD took the companies to court to be able to prevent itself from having to pay out $1.3 billion. And so a judgment came in on the 26th of April. So earlier on this week, a judgment came in. Namalco Construction Company Services Limited. Let me put up the release. Let me put up the press release so they could see the press release and put myself next to the press release. So on the 26th of April, Justice Rahim delivered his judgment in the above captioned matter. So Namalco is one of the contractors. So Namalco Construction Services versus EMBD by way of the Atlantic project, right? And so this matter involved a claim brought by Namalco Construction Services. Let me make it big. Sorry, actually, let me small up myself and make this big. Right, so a claim brought by Namalco against EMBD in 2016 for breach of contract and outstanding sums of approximately $1.2 billion relating to 4 developments of residential sites for Caroni VSEP workers: Cedar Hill, Pittimore, Picton, and Rupsing. So it was 4 pieces of land, 4 areas of land, and they were supposed to be developing. It's 4 areas of Caroni land that they were supposed to be developing, right? So agricultural land, and they had gotten the contract to develop those 4 areas of Caroni land. EMBD defended the matter, and they defended the matter on a number of grounds. And so they won the matter in court this week gone here. And when I say they won the matter, the $1.3 billion that Namalco was asking them to pay out, EMBD did not have to pay out the $1.3 million. They ended up, though, still having to pay $426 or $427 million. So the state managed to save about $800 million, as in not having to pay them the full $1.3 billion. So so the state has saved itself from paying $800 million, but it still had to pay $427 million. And what all you need to understand is $427 million of our money gets spent and paid to contractors who did not complete a job that they were paid up front to do, that the People's Partnership had attempted to pay them up front to do. So let me read another bit from the ruling. EMBD is heartened at the findings of the Honorable Court in relation to Namalco. The former CEO of EMBD, Mr. Sibalak Singh, and BBFL, namely that the combination of actions on the part of Namalco, Singh, and BFL were committed with only one intention. Put simply, to extract more money from the state entity EMBD than Namalco would have been entitled to, both as a matter of damages on the original award for the stoppage and for the future works on the said projects. I want to reread that paragraph for you. As a matter of fact, these 3 paragraphs in the middle here, let me read them again. Embd is heartened at the findings of the court, and the court found that Namalko, the former CEO of Embd, and Mr. Sibalak Singh, and BBFL all acted with only one intention, and that was to extract more money from the government than they were entitled to. It is there in the ruling, plain as day, that the court arrived at those findings, that the former CEO, Mr. Sibalak Singh, BBFL, and Namalko all combined together to act with one intention, to get more money than they were entitled to. The court also found that Namalko knew that Mr. Singh, who was the CEO of Embd at the time, possessed no actual, implied, or ostensible authority to execute certain supplementary agreements. So Namalko knew that some of the things they were asking the CEO, the then CEO of Embd, to do, that he didn't actually have the remit to do those things, and still those things were done. So I want all you to understand something. In this ruling, and at some point in time we're going to get into the ruling, because the ruling is 245 pages long. So I have to carve out some time to read out that ruling, to read the ruling and pull it together and come here and sit down and talk to all you about this whole Namalko versus Embd case. Because I want you all to grasp that Namalko and a CEO of a state entity conspired, right, got together and executed a contract, and the sole purpose, according to the findings of the court, was to get more money from the state than they were supposed to have gotten. So another, I ain't finished with the Embd issue yet. One of the things that disturbed me about how this case was covered is this. Look at the media story here. As a matter of fact, maybe I need to put it in front of my face a little bit and make it bigger. Look at the headline. Court orders Embd to pay Namalko $427 million. Now, when you see a headline like that, aren't you going to automatically assume that Embd lost the case? When you see a media house put up a headline that says, court orders Embd to pay Namalko $427 million. Now the headline is a lie, but the headline misleading. Because the court says to Namalko, the court says to Embd, okay, a particular time has passed, and so there are certain statutes that all you can't avoid. There are certain payments that you will not be able to avoid because a certain amount of time passed before the thing became a legal matter. So because that time period passed and the way in which the contracts and they were done up means that you had to pay them certain amounts by a particular time, that's why the state ended up having to pay Namalko. That's why Embd ended up having to pay Namalko the $427 million. But what that headline ought to have contextualized is that Namalko was getting $427 million out of an actual $1.3 billion. And so I feel, even though it's still a lot of money that Namalko is getting, I feel as if the population needed to grasp that Namalko lost the case. It didn't win the case. And I also feel it is important that people understand that the reason Namalko got any money at all is that certain time periods had elapsed, or had lapsed rather, and so that allowed for them to be paid more money than they ought to have been paid. And I also feel that it is important for people to grasp that based on the ruling looked at the nature of the relationship between the contractor, the CEO of Embd, and the line minister at that point in time. Let me see if I can find the right. Additionally, let me read this bit. Additionally, at trial, it was revealed in the previously disclosed minutes of EMBD's board meeting of June 26, 2014. Let me see if I have this here on my system so I can look directly at you while I'm reading it out. Yes. Additionally, at trial, it was revealed in the previously undisclosed minutes of EMBD's board meeting of June 26, 2014. So keep an eye on that date, June 26, 2014. We know what time period that was. That following a board legal review of, amongst others, the status of 3 of the 4 contracts this claim concerns, EMBD's board directed that documents be prepared to send to the line minister to support its request for funding in order to complete the projects. Right? So, back in 2014, there were minutes of a board meeting. And that minutes of the board meeting back in 2014 showed that there was a review taking place of 3 of the 4 contracts, and that the EMBD board, right, Sibelak Singh and the EMBD board directed that documents be sent to the line minister to support its request for funding for the project. So the board of the EMBD, the CEO of the EMBD, the contractor, and the line minister, those 4 sets of persons, entities, whatever word you want to use, those 4 things are all part of this $1.3 billion heist of the Treasury. So I want you all to remember that, right? Because the 245 pages of this ruling basically pointing to high-level collusion, white-collar corruption at its purest form, in its purest, most distilled way of happening. You have a line minister, you have a line minister, you have a board, you have a CEO, you have contractors, right? And all of these people, I sure when the day come, just talk about how much they love Trinidad and Tobago. I sure all of them just be talking about how Trinidad and Tobago could be a better place. I sure they just be busy all over social media complaining about, oh God, what the place coming to, what the country coming to. And none of them may pause to think about what they doing and how they would have contributed to crime and criminal activity in this country, as well as to denying less fortunate projects and communities, denying them money and resources. They don't think about things like that at all, right? So that is EMBD. What's the next thing I want to talk about, boy? Well, yeah. Toppy launcher party. And listen, all your else think, you know. Oh, good. That's not the poster. So, Toppy launcher party, the National Transformation Alliance. And it had a big long he had a big long oh my goodness, let me find it. Because somebody with a worthless self sent it to me this morning. Only give me a second, because I need to share it. I need to share it to the iPad. I didn't think I had this on the iPad. My bad. So, did I get it onto the iPad, boy? Because I want all it to hear what he I want all it to hear Toppy say what is he had to say with his own voice. Me want nobody say that I I say and I talk for him. Okay, it's still uploading. But right. So, National Transformation Alliance. And he launched a party and thing. Someone earlier, some kind person, some good Samaritan, decide to change up the man poster and always send this to me. Why always so? And listen, people so bad. This is not all they send to me, right? They send that to me and then they say, look, there's a picture of candidates. There's a picture of people who going to sign up to be in National Transformation Alliance. All you're not good at all, all you're not good a little bit, right? All you're not good a little bit. Try the best now. I'm trying to be a better person. I am trying to be a better person. So Toppy, come and he talk. Let me let all you listen, right? All you can listen for yourself.
Hello, I am Gary Griffith Jr. And a key constant in my life is that of service to my country and my people. Being of service has always been a bridge to the light for me. And after engaging in numerous conversations, listening to many
Gary accused himself of listening. All I ever get the impression Gary doesn't listen to anything at all. But let us go back a little bit because I want to start this thing from the top, and we go in and break this down, right?
Hello.
1. Gary, that jacket little tight. So it means that you have put on weight. You're living well, Gary, because it tight over your belly, right? The thing, no, you need a corset, right? And I could talk to you about corset and thing. You need a corset to pull thing in, so that way your shoulders and thing looking broader than your belly, because little tight, and you fold up your arm too much, so the suit looking crinkle and thing. But anyhow, let we go.
I am Gary Griffith Jr. And a key constant in my life is that of service to my country.
So homeboy, make sure that he have the belt that's saying GG, right? So he move his hand and he's showing you the GG just over, right? Just over his pelvic area there, right? So double G over the pelvic area. And then he have the word service emblazoned across his chest. So all of the messages there, Gary, GG, service.
And my people. Being of service has always been a bridge to the light for me. And
homeboy say being of service has always been a bridge to the light. So I listened to that and I thought to myself, when exactly has Gary ever actually been of service to the nation? I'm not going to go into it yet, because you know what? I am going to allow Gary and his National Transformation Alliance, which is, for me, another version of the COP, and another version of the National Alliance Reconstruction, and another version of the POPPG, for those of you on the live that old enough to remember when Eric Williams first became premier and the People's National Movement first became a thing. I'm going to give them the opportunity to start to establish themselves before I deconstruct and discuss things. Because Gary himself, as an individual, as a leader of a political party, is of particular interest to me, if for no other reason than the fact that 2 men died in police custody while he served as Commissioner of Police. And because I know that the United States has written a document that points to him being a gross violator of human rights, I want to fathom how exactly does Gary Griffith intend to deal with those issues hanging over his and his political party's head.
After engaging in numerous conversations, listening to many perspectives, and reading your countless contributions, I am more than ever committed to the mission of improving our country through transformation and continued national service.
So I want to understand, when he says that he's going to transform the country, which part of the country is he going to transform? All of the people that he called names? All of the people that he referred to as cockroach and pests? Because the people that he referred to as cockroach and pests are part of an ethnic group that makes up about 34% of the society. So when you have this gentleman who functioned as a commissioner of police, who spent a lot of time depicting one particular group in the country as criminals in a particular way, how do you then step forward and say, I am going to be the person who leads you towards success through my service? How?
This time, through the National Transformation Alliance, the NTA. No man is an island. Our country.
I was shocked to hear Gary say no man is an island, because Gary does behave as if he is his own entire continent. So when he's saying no man is an island, I pause and I say to myself, well, let me see who are the other persons who are going to be coming around and aligning themselves with Mr. Griffith to become this National Transformation Alliance.
Our country has noble, progressive, visionary, hard-working citizens who desire to fulfill our motto, together we aspire, together we achieve. Therefore, I invite every citizen of Trinidad and Tobago to register your interests and desire to assemble under the banner of the NTA to start the process of national transformation for the good of our nation. We believe that everyone can contribute.
Right, I can't do 2 whole minutes of this at all. So I will make sure the video up on my page, so if whoever want to watch the whole 2 minutes of Gary, or they could watch the whole 2 minutes of Gary. But there are a couple other things that I want to look at. We are going to be looking at least one more video of Gary, because that's the launch of the party. Good, great. But we had to talk about spy and spyware. And the reason we had to talk about spy and spyware is that in the newspapers today, Gary's favorite journalist, Mark Bassant, put out a piece. And in the piece, a couple of things that I found out was particularly interesting was that the same Gary Griffith, who a little over a week ago said that he didn't purchase any spyware, in this article admits to having purchased the spyware. But more interesting than that, or equally interesting than that, is that Gary also said it on a Power 102 interview earlier on this week. So let's take a look at that. I want to talk about that a little bit.
People chiming in on the poll.
Just now. I have to go in a bit. Right, so there's a point where
probably something like that.
And he's suffering the effects of that.
Yeah, Richard was going to join us. He popped
He's entering the room.
He isn't, and he's calling me. Unmute.
I was on a call here. My bad. Apologies.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
He's a
So yes, it seems to have been.
Give me a second, because I didn't have the opportunity to edit this video because I only looked at it very late this evening. And Gary was having some problems getting onto the program.
A few pounds from the last time I saw him. And that's all I will say about that.
Astounding that you always
quite active, so
right. Gary Griffith
So
not me at all. So I eat more salads and grilled chicken and try to eat properly a little bit. Quite active, so
right. Gary Griffith is entering the room.
He isn't, and he's calling me on his phone. So let me see what's happening there.
So some of my colleagues from Power 102. You all remember I used to work with Power 102.
Are you hearing me now, Gary? Not on the phone.
Yes, clearly.
On the computer?
Right.
Yeah, we're good.
All right. When in doubt, reboot.
Log out.
Yes.
Log out. When in doubt. There you go. All right. So welcome and good morning to you once again, Gary Griffith.
Yes, good morning.
Much better.
Yes, Honorable. So the first thing I would like to say is that this has gone totally out of control on both sides of the political fence. Never before have I have worked on many occasions with international agencies around the world, and we have never seen politicians get involved so much in dealing with intelligence gathering and interception. It has reached a point now where.
So that's the first thing for me that struck me when he said we've never seen politicians get so involved in intelligence and interception and stuff. And I thought, Gary, one, thinks that everybody has a memory that is as short as his own. He also doesn't remember a lot of the things that he says. And further to that, he probably thinks that we all are stupid. Because the last time a government became this hung up on and this focused on interception and surveillance and finding out what tapped and who tapped and making sure that things tapped would have been when he was security advisor to the Kamla Prasad Bisesa government from 2010 to 2015. Now, of course, he wasn't national security advisor the entire time. He went from being a national security advisor in 2010 and 2011 and 2012. And then eventually when we get to 2013 into 2014 thereabouts, that's when he became the Minister of National Security. And so would have been in a position to go from giving advice about how to use intercept software and intercept apparati, and also how to dismantle surveillance equipment, because remember he was part and parcel of that, to becoming a policy maker, somebody in a position of authority to get intercept equipment and also to manage these various the various arms of national security. What continues to be interesting in the conversation that he has here between Paul Richards, Steve Cannon himself, is that he admits to getting the spyware, and he admits to not passing the spyware on to the SSA, which according to our laws is only the SSA supposed to be handling interception of information in that way, not the TTPS. SSA is supposed to do the intercepting, handling the data, and then passing on anything that they deem relevant and necessary and pertinent to in terms of criminal activity to the TTPS. It is not the TTPS's job to do interception. So, let me not jump ahead of myself. Let me just play the thing and Leola listen to it.
In opposition senators demanding they would like the government to give the details of what is the spyware and how it is used and how much can be done. And then you have the government trying to justify why it is being done. This is totally incorrect. The only reason I got involved was because the Prime Minister made 3 false statements in Parliament where he stated that this was acquired without authorization, that he did not know about it. And also the fact that they ordered me to hand it over to the SSA. Those 3 things were totally incorrect. So yes, I did acquire the equipment, and I will obviously, unlike other politicians, I am not going to reveal the details of this type of equipment. It is irresponsible. It is very reckless. And what I can say, it was done. And what was important, Paul, I think you're muted. Paul, you're mute.
It was done. Now, the reason I wanted you all to hear this is that when Kamla came out on her Monday night forum and talk about Pegasus spyware and having heard that there was this spyware and the former Attorney General was being spied on, when that story broke, Griffith was one of the persons who was saying that he didn't do any purchasing. And then there was a story in the Express afterwards that pointed to the fact that the TTPS did actually purchase. Then you have this Guardian story. Now you have, and you also had Griffith this week, the 26th of April, having a conversation with the Power Breakfast show and admitting, yes, he did purchase it. He's also saying that high-ranking persons are aware of it. Now, let us bear in mind that Griffith, as Commissioner of Police, is the accounting officer for the TTPS. So he could have made the decision to purchase equipment and then without seeking permission for purchasing the equipment and then telling people thereafter. What I want to know, what I want to understand is, how was Griffith allowed to purchase equipment and inform senior high-ranking officials in the government about the purchase of this equipment, and then he, as he claims in the Guardian story today, he was not told, he was not asked to pass the software on to the SSA. Because I'm confused as to how he was allowed to continue to hold on to the equipment. Whether he intercepted or didn't intercept, because of course he talking all over the place, talking out of all sides of his mouth, saying there was no surveillance and no interception taking place. I don't know how much of that I believe, especially since you're getting multiple versions to this story, right? About 1 minute, you didn't purchase, then you purchased, but you're not going to say where's the name of the spyware, and you're not going to. It's that there are too many moving parts now. There are too many different narratives, multiple narratives of the same thing. I don't know who or what to believe at this point in time. But what I am clear on is this. If he did purchase the spyware, and I'm sure there is documentation to prove that he purchased the spyware, because McDonald Jacobs is saying that the spyware was purchased and that it costing us, to the tune of $48 million, and as a real burden on the TTPS at this point in time. So we know the spyware was purchased. We know that the spyware was purchased in 2020. That would have been when Griffith was Commissioner of Police. And since he is the accounting officer for the TTPS, he had to have been aware of the purchase of this spyware. So you purchased it, and you purchased something that you are not supposed to be in possession of, because according to our laws, it's only the SSA that's supposed to be doing interception of that kind. Why were you allowed to do that? Further to that, why did you, as the chief law enforcer of the country, think that it was legal and okay for you to go and buy and use this software? Those are some very important questions. Did you actually spy on members of the population? Did you intercept messages between members of the population? And what did you do with that data? What did you do with that information? And this man, as we would have seen just a couple minutes ago, wants to transform the country. He wants to be our leader. And if you're going to be our leader, you have questions to answer, Gary. You have real questions to answer. Because as far as I see it, in a situation like this, if only the SSA, according to our laws, supposed to be the entity dealing up with things like interception of information, you may have been in breach of a law. And this would have been when you were sitting Commissioner of Police. It blows my mind that you were even reappointed to act as Commissioner of Police. It blows my mind. So if senior persons were aware of this purchase and didn't have a problem with this purchase, what you're basically pointing towards might be the line minister or the chair of the National Security Council. And if that's the case, come and say it with your whole chest, Gary. Come out and say it with your whole chest. Name names. Say exactly who was aware that you were purchasing this spyware and didn't tell you, A, you can't purchase it, and B, only SSA is supposed to be using it. And that's all I asking. I just want clarity on this particular issue. I want to know how the TTPS managed to spend taxpayers' dollars on this software, something that they should not have been spending money on, and how they end up being in a position where they managing the use of this software. That's all. I just want to understand how we break in laws in this country. Once I understand how we break in laws in this country, I could move to suit thereafter. So that is spy versus spy. We come into we reaching the finish line, folks. We're reaching the finish line. We're reaching where I wanted to where I planned to start things when I was doing this when I was planning the live on Friday. Wait. Is here? Right. Good. So, I as a woman grew up listening to plenty Indian music and watching plenty Indian movies. I think I would have been a young adult, like Masi, late teens, early 20s, when I stopped listening to filmy music, Bollywood music, and thing in large amounts, right? So now it's like in smaller doses. But everybody should know this fella. Or they should know this fella's voice.
चांद से पर्दा कीजिए
not sure, who unaware, that is Kumar Sanu. Kumar Sanu has one of the easiest listening voices on the face of the earth, and he does sing plenty love song, right? Plenty love song. So if you don't know who Kumar Sanu is, well, I mean, I am mad at you, but I will say, you're missing out on some lovely music. So we have a High Commissioner here. There's the High Commissioner. His name is Kumar Sahu, right? Not Sanu. So Kumar Sanu is the singer. Sorry, let me Kumar. Just now, my goodness. It is not Kumar, Arun. So Kumar Sanu, is the singer. Arun Sahu is the High Commissioner from India to Trinidad and Tobago. And Arun Sahu would be representing his country, a sovereign state, a country that is similar to ours. They have a prime minister. They are independent, right? So they have a lot of things that are similar to us. As a matter of fact, India gained its independence somewhere around 1947, 1948, thereabouts. And then we would have gained our independence in 1962. So Trinidad and Tobago and India share a past, and we share a present, because we are both countries that would have at one point in time been colonized by the United Kingdom, and within a 20-year period we would have both sought and gotten our independence. So the whole idea of being independent and respecting the sovereignty of nations are things that I'm sure both India and Trinidad and Tobago understand. So imagine my shock, right? I wake up the 22nd of April. So the 21st of April was Tuesday. No, it's the 24th of April. So I wake up like the Monday morning, and I see this set of pictures. This tweet from Arun Sahu indicating that he unveiled the statue of Mahatma Gandhi at Cedrus along with the former Prime Minister, Honorable Mrs. Kamla Persad Bissessa. So I take my fast self and I jump on the People Twitter thread and I ask him a couple questions. Why is it that only members of the United National Congress as office holders were there? How come it's only the opposition leader that was there? Now, there are a number of things that I should point out. There are a list of details I should point out. I am told, and not 100% certain, but I am told that the land on which the statue has been placed on is private land. But it is private land within the sovereign state of Trinidad and Tobago. And there's a reason that I'm going to be talking about all of these things in this way. Arun Sahu is not the High Commissioner to a private home. He is not. The High Commission can give gifts to whomever it wants to give gifts to. But if you are giving gifts and you are acknowledging only leaders from one particular political party, especially leaders from that one particular political party that are not actually voted into power, they're not actually forming and functioning as the executive government here, then that's a diplomatic insult. That's what it is. It's not a misstep, it's not a faux pas, it is a diplomatic insult. So I'm told, I'm not 100% certain because me I see the deed, but I'm told it was on private land. I'm also told that he did not invite the MP for the constituency, because the constituency that the land falls into is Point Fortin. So the MP for Point Fortin Kennedy Richards was not invited. Maybe because Kennedy Richards does not look like the High Commissioner. I don't know for certain. He also did not invite anybody from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So there's no other members from the diplomatic corps. There are no government officials. There's no MP from Point Fortin. None of those things have taken place. None of those protocols are covered at all. Instead, what you have is Arun Sahu putting up a tweet of the unveiling of the statue in Cedrus next to Kamla Persad-Bissessar. And he is careful to not say that she is the opposition leader. He says, with former Prime Minister, Honorable Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar. So he positions Kamla Persad-Bissessar as if she is still linked to leadership in some form or fashion, when she is not. So there's a diplomatic question that needs to be answered with respect to why did Sahu show up at this event, whether or not the Indian High Commission in and of itself donated the statue, and why did he agree to be at an event of this kind without there being other diplomatic officials and proper diplomatic protocol being followed. So there is that. But there is also this that needs to be raised. The legacy of Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi, understandably, in the early part of the last century, was viewed as, positioned as, described as a hero. However, in recent times, in the last 20 to 30 years, there's been a lot of information arising about Gandhi's legacy. Some of it to do with his attitudes towards women, and a lot of it to do with his attitudes towards other ethnic groups. Gandhi has been accused of being anti-black and, in many instances, racist. Trinidad and Tobago is a multi-ethnic society. We are multicultural, we are multi-religious. Sahu, again, is a diplomat representing his country, his sovereign nation, in our sovereign nation. Arun Sahu is not the High Commissioner to the East Indian diaspora because there is no country called the East Indian diaspora. He is the High Commissioner to Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago is a country that has multiple ethnic groups, and we try as much as we possibly can to respect all of those various ethnic groups. And one of the ways to respect all of those ethnic groups is not to put up statues, certainly not in this 2022, of persons that have a problematic legacy when it comes to things like slavery, enslavement, racism, and of course, blackness. So to have an ambassador from India come here, attend an event, whether it is on private land or public land, and unveil a statue with the opposition leader of a person who has a legacy of anti-blackness and racism is nothing short of a slap in this country's face. I'm not sure that the current diplomatic relations between Trinidad and Tobago and India can continue to have Arun Sahu here as High Commissioner. So I think, based on what happened recently this week, as well as his contribution to diplomatic tensions between both countries with respect to vaccines last year, because me forget the whole vaccine fiasco with Sahu last year, I think that it is time for Arun Sahu to pack up his Georgie bundle and head back home. We need a new Indian High Commissioner. We need somebody who is open-minded. We need somebody who understands that he is not the High Commissioner to a particular group of persons. He is the High Commissioner to an entire multi-ethnic country, right? A sovereign state. So that's where I'm going to wrap things up with you all, folks. I hope you all enjoyed. So we're looking at we're looking at Friday, because there are a number of things that I really want to discuss with you all. And so we're looking at Friday because there are a number of issues that I want to discuss with you all this coming Friday. And tomorrow is Eid, so I want to wish the Muslim community of Trinidad and Tobago happy Eid, so Eid Mubarak, and I hope that it was also a very safe fasting period. So I hope it was also Ramadan Mubarak, and of course Eid Mubarak tomorrow. Yes, I have to talk to you all about Karen Nunes Teixeira, right? So it have Karen Nunes Teixeira for me to talk to you all about. It had the EMBD report for me to talk to you all about. It have that TNTech, the Blackout Report for me to talk to you about. And it have plenty thing. So by Friday, I go put up a poster and all you gonna know precisely what it is we planning to talk about come Friday. Alright? But for now, enjoy all your the rest of your Sunday evening. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my Sunday evening. Enjoy the holiday tomorrow. Right?